Welcome back. Congressional Democrats say they were kept in the dark about the dramatic military operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Senior Democrats, including House Intelligence Committee ranking member Jim Himes of Connecticut, said the administration failed to notify even the Gang of Eight, who are typically briefed on classified actions. After 2 days of pressure, officials agreed to provide a classified briefing later this evening. However, members of Congress still warn of legal and humanitarian risks as they call out the president for bypassing Congress, with Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia planning to force a vote to block further military action against Venezuela without congressional approval. He discussed that resolution yesterday on MS Now and why he feels it might be different than the one that he put up that failed just last month. Watch what he told me. Have you spoken to any Republicans who might have had a change of heart since this major move against Maduro?
I got every Democrat and I got 2 Republicans, but many Republican colleagues told me that they voted against my resolution because they believed it was premature, that Donald Trump was bluffing, that he had assured them that there was going to be no land invasion, no regime change, no seizure of oil in Venezuela. I did get votes of Senator Rand Paul, who's a co-sponsor of my bill, and Susan Collins. But given that the president and his team sort of lied to Congress and they went ahead and did this land invasion, I believe we will get more Republican support.
We're going to see. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, good morning. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming on.
Morning.
You know, Democrats, of course, are sounding the alarm about the legality of this operation. I wonder if you can talk about your reaction and your response to those debating if the president rejected the constitutional authority of Congress needing to actually approve this action. I mean, presidents have bypassed Congress before from both parties.
Well, I think first off, it's critically important at this point that the President of the United States and his team come in and brief Congress and make sure we understand exactly the intelligence sitting on the Intelligence Committee, the intelligence behind it, and where we are now and what the plans are going forward. I think that's critically important. But let's not forget that Maduro was part of a corrupt regime who enriched himself, who undermined democracy, ran a narco terrorist regime who time and again not only avoided the law, but did everything it can to undermine America and our authority, and of course did everything possible to push drugs into our country. So there's a lot of issues at play here, and we have to make sure that we're on top of it. And moving forward, the question now is, what do we do to stabilize the country?
I think that is one of many questions about what the future on the ground in Venezuela will be. But do you feel misled by the administration? I know they did a briefing with all members at the end of the year, right before everyone went home for the holiday and New Year break. But do you feel like what actually ended up happening over the weekend is in direct contrast to that? Because Senator Tim Kaine said to me that Congress felt lied to.
Well, listen, I think the question now is, the administration has acted, they informed us of their actions, and now I want to understand what the plans are going forward. It's difficult to go backwards. The question is now, what do we do going forward? And both who's going to be running the country there, what's the plan, what's the strategy, and what's the strategy for the region? To me, that's what I'm focused on going forward, and what I want information on to understand how do we get a democratically elected leader in the country, which I think is critically important for the people there. How do we make sure we stabilize things? And let's not forget that they can be a key U.S. partner under the right leadership, and they haven't been. In fact, just the opposite. Maduro was close to Iran, to China, and Russia, to our enemies, providing, as you know, oil to some of our enemies. All of these things were a huge threat to our country and to the region. Now, can we, moving forward, actually stabilize things and get Venezuela to be a key partner to the United States? And I think that's very important.
Yeah, and I think especially when you talk about someone democratically elected, the way that the president is talking about Machado, who is the opposition leader there, who won the Nobel Peace Prize. There are sources now telling the Washington Post that part of the reason that Trump is not backing her leadership is because she didn't basically defer the Peace Prize to him. That's sources on background to the Washington Post. So certainly notable as we have questions, rightly, about what comes next on the ground in Venezuela. I know that's going to be a key focus as members of Congress like you come back to town town. But the other question that I want to ask is about the Affordable Care Act. That is a vote that is going to come, I think, Wednesday or Thursday is when we're tracking it. You've been a part of these negotiations behind the scenes with Republicans and Democrats trying to find some consensus on this issue. What is the latest on that? What do you anticipate we'll see from that vote? And then, of course, going forward, is there a bipartisan solution to this even after the ACA subsidies lapsed?
Well, I think we have to find one. As you know, the subsidies have elapsed, and you've got a lot of Americans who just overnight in the new year are facing much higher premiums. You're talking about where I live in New Jersey, a family of four facing premiums higher now, on average $20,000 or more increases in their premiums. That's just unaffordable. People are dropping out of their health care plans or have switched plans and downgraded their plans. None of that's acceptable. We got to do everything we can to make health care more affordable for people, just to make everything more affordable. So the key now is how do we get a deal done? We'll be voting this week on where you saw just before the new year, we had put up a bill in the House that will come up for a vote for a 3-year extension, and that will go to the Senate. I've been talking over the break to senators of both parties about getting a deal done, and there's been a lot of conversations, happening there. They might send us back a different bill.
Do you think votes are shifting in the Senate?
I think things are moving in the right direction on both sides. I think there's a deal shaping up. Now we got to get it over the finish line. There's still things to be worked out. And if we can get that and that comes back to the House, hopefully we vote on that and get health care, these premiums extended and get their premiums down, which I think is the number one importance.
A lot of high stakes issues as Congress comes back to town. Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, I will see you this week. Thank you for coming on.
Great. Thanks for having me.